Howdy everyone, Polcher here with an Age of Magic video, and in today's video we'll be doing the Hero Spotlight for Diana, the tank of the Witches Coven faction, and with her release comes the new Brotherhood, the Defense Orb squad. So in my next video we'll go over them, we'll talk about where their strengths are, their weaknesses are, and how you can potentially use them. In this video we'll focus on Diana and talk about her only. Her hit points come in at 3.7 million. Her speed is 224, armor 26k, magic damage resistance 63k, basic magic damage is 338k, magic critical hit chance is 46%, very high. Magic critical damage is 593k. Those are her stats. Here are the more in-depth stats, and feel free to pause and take any information you want. And then we'll jump into the arena, look at her abilities, her animations, and yeah, talk a little bit about the character. Other than that, she's a beautifully designed character. Very happy with it. Age of Magic have always killed their character designs. Just the way it is. But we'll jump in the arena now, look over her, and yeah, talk about what she's capable of. Jumping into the arena, we have Diana's basic attack. Strength Orb triggers the tank class mark. Deals magic damage to one target. If the target has a slowdown debuff, Diana swaps it for the skip turn for one turn. If the target has the healing decreased debuff, Diana swaps it for another effect for one turn every time the hero is healed. A dot effect is cast, dealing 25% of Diana's base damage for 2 turns. Casting new debuffs ignores Fortitude and Magic Fortitude checks. If this swap fails, the previous debuff remains. So it's a very interesting basic ability. It just enhances debuffs on the enemy and pretty much promotes them from a skip turn from a slow to a skip turn, and from a healing decrease to an anti-healing. So essentially Blood Mage, who converts any healing done to an enemy to a dot. So very interesting. We'll go ahead and look at the animations now. We'll go ahead and attack the Arcane, because why not? Yeah, she just shoots pretty much a gem across the field. Nice damage for a basic. It was 600k, I think. It was critical. She's got high crit. It's pretty much a 50% chance whether she's going to crit or not. Very interesting for a tank. Very interesting. But yeah, cool. Moving on to Diana's first special, we have Guarding Orb. Removes all vulnerability, mockery, dodge decrease, and support attacks block debuffs from all witches and light allies. Casts 7 charge shield buffs on all witches and light allies. If the target takes damage to the shield, it returns 30% of that damage to the attacker. Shield ignores dots. So what I want to note here as well is that even though she is part of the Defense Orb squad, the Brotherhood, it doesn't mention that in her abilities, but it essentially covers them anyway, because the Defense Orb squad members are at the moment witches. So that's Nora and Belladonna, and the other two are Suna and Mizuhiku, which are both light allies. So the light section of that covers them. Even though it doesn't mention the Defense Orb squad, it covers everyone in the Defense Orb squad anyway. So we'll go ahead and look at the animation of the ability. Nice. Honestly, she doesn't look like a character from the Witches Coven, but then you start looking at her abilities and yeah, she fits. I just love her design. I think she's really great. I don't know what I meant, but she actually does look like a witch. Very much so. So yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's talk about this. So good support capabilities to remove vulnerability are going to prevent enemies from slipping past those tanks. Mockery, I'm pretty sure Mockery is taunt. It's just a weird way of saying taunt. And dodge decrease and support attacks blocked debuff. So it's going to allow your characters to keep support attacking. And cast 7 charge shield buffs on all witches and light allies. If the target takes damage to the shield, it returns 30%. So that's reliant on the ally having a shield though. And I guess the negative with this is the game is now pushed in a sense that many teams, Orcs for example, they're built to inflict quick damage the moment the battle starts. It wasn't recorded, but the moment this battle started, and yes, I'm not using a 5-man squad, but the moment this battle started, those Orcs immediately took out my Belladonna. She stood no chance. Now, the issue with this ability is because of how quick damage comes out, there is no real chance that you're going to have a lot of opportunity to build up a lot of shield. Therefore, that 30% damage to the attackers isn't really doing much in a high-end top-tier arena battle. I'm not saying it's not useful. There could be PvE instances where this becomes very useful. The damage output would be great, but it requires a bit of setup. It requires a battle to go on for a while, so that shield actually builds up. You have a chance to get shield, and then shield ignores dots. So shield ignores dots. That's interesting. I don't understand what that part means. I don't know if that means dots don't reflect damage, or it's just a very interesting little part to put at the end. But yeah, other than that, it's a nice supportability. Nothing over the top. It's not going to break or make any meta teams, and it's just defensive. That's all it is. Moving on to Diana's second special, we have Fury Orb. Cast 4 buffs on Diana, reducing the damage taken by 50%. Cast the Mockery debuff on all enemies, forcing them to attack Diana only for 3 turns. All allied witches and light allies get a shield equal to 15% of their maximum health. Dark allies get half of that. So we'll go ahead and look at the animation. Beautiful. And yeah, it's a taunt. That's all it is. Mockery is just a fancy word for taunt. There you go. Now, the 50% damage reduction, pretty decent. That's going to give her a lot of survivability. 4 buffs. Again, high impact damage very quickly. Multiple hits. For example, Chrome hits her once, takes away all 4 of those buffs very easily. With support attacks as well. For example, you've got your Renegades. Assuming you have an Abaddon leader, that Morrigan is getting an attack off every basic attack you do, and that's an AoE attack, going to reduce those stacks very quickly. It's just, I think maybe it could have been a little bit higher. Cast the Mockery debuff, so it gets a taunt out, really nice, especially with the 50% damage reduction as well. But when you look at it, so you got to consider this as well. You're giving this character a taunt for 3 turns. Then you're giving her a 4 stack of 50% damage reduction. You're forcing everyone to attack her. They're going to very quickly get rid of those buffs. And pretty much she's going to be vulnerable at that point. Because the tankiness of tanks in the game is not equivalent to the damage dealers can do. Back in the old days when Siegfried was like top tier god level tank, he could take a hit. No character was one-shotting him at the beginning. No character was half-healthing him at the beginning of a fight. He was taking a hit, and he was taking it well. Magnus came along and kind of continued that with the fact that he couldn't be crit. So again, no one was killing him in one go. But other than that, I think with the amount of damage teams can output these days, I think tanks need a little bit of tweaking so they're actually tanks, like they're doing work, they're taking those hits. Ally and get 15% of the max. So I guess here again, what would have been nice to see is the allies getting 15%, but her getting a bit more. So yeah, that's cool. 15%, it's fine. What I didn't realize as well is I was trying to realize how this would work against Dark Elves, because obviously Drake is potentially a good counter to any team that utilizes shields with his Gas Cloud. I believe that Gas Cloud... So, for example, Gas Cloud does damage equal to the percentage of the shield. So if you apply a shield that's 10% of max HP, Gas Cloud is going to do 10% damage to your max HP. That's how it works. It's an equal trade or equal amount of damage. But at the same time, the damage is also reduced by negation. So, for example, if she has the 50% damage reduction, she's not going to lose that 10%. She's only going to lose 5%. So, if you're looking at this team and thinking Dark Elves potentially, it's very hard. The Drake isn't really doing as much damage as I was hoping he'd do. And I said maybe that could have been changed if there was more shield being applied. Moving on to Diana's passive, we have Guardian. If the enemy deals damage to all allies, Diana absorbs 70% of the damage dealt to the other allies and reduces it by 30%, excluding or including damage to herself. If an enemy's critical damage to another witch or light ally with this attack, Diana has a 100% chance to cast Mockery on that enemy for 3 turns. If an enemy deals critical damage to another witch. Okay. If an enemy with Mockery deals damage to all allies, then special ability cooldown of random Diana's ally is reduced by 1. Okay, so we were going good. And then we just got hit with a little bit of RNG in it. Okay. All right, so absorbing the damage. I love that concept. I remember back in the day when, like I said, when tanks were useless, I pitched an idea for Gatekeeper that he's this big chunky mass. And I pitched the idea that he should have the ability to absorb damage off allies. All right, that he's taking it in. And I pitched it that he took the damage and it built up his strength, which he could release. Kind of like Black Panther. You hit and hit and hit. The kinetic energy builds up and he just whips it out and hits back. So it kind of made him a threat. You had to deal with him instead of leaving him. He didn't need a taunt. He was just absorbing the damage everyone was taking and then bang. So they've added that to this character. She absorbs a lot of it from AoE. She absorbs 70%. And then reduces the damage, but she still takes a lot of that damage. So the downfall of this as well is, again, with the way the meta is, teams are very fast, very, very fast. What you're going to find is if your team is faster than the Defensor squad or the Witches squad or whatever squad this character can be implemented into, and you are able to whip out a powerful AoE ability off the bat, Tyros, for example, she's going to take that full amount of damage with no buff of damage reduction at all. So it almost makes it a little too easy to kill her. Yes, she's got the 30% damage reduction in the ability, but at the same time, if you're hitting a Tyros spin and each character's getting hit, I don't even know off the top of my head what a Tyros spin would do in total damage, but I can promise you it's in the millions. It's in the millions. And when you consider this character has a 3.7 million health pool, it's a lot of damage for her to be taking. Again, even with the damage reduction, that's, if she takes 1 million damage from an AoE ability, she takes 700k instead because she removes 300k of that damage. So it becomes an issue of speed. You hit very quickly, you hit very hard, you hit a strong AoE, and you could take her out fairly easily. That's the downfall of this, the speed issue with the game. If an enemy deals critical damage to another witch, she casts the Mockery. So she's got this inbuilt ability to almost be taunting if there's a threat to an ally. If they're hitting your Belladonna, who of course would be the primary target of the AI, you land a crit, bang, taunt on that one character that crit Belladonna. The damage has already been done to Belladonna, but now she may survive another round because, you've got 2-3 damage dealers on a team. There's 2 other characters that aren't going to be executing Belladonna. This is a bad example because this team, that Chrome will rip through Belladonna like it's nothing. But yeah, so then again, it goes back to the fact that she's placing a lot of damage onto herself. She's got that taunt now up on an enemy, and she's taking a lot of damage with, again, very little damage reduction. With the 70, and I'm not talking about other characters in the team that could potentially support her. I'm just talking about her as an individual. She doesn't have a lot of survivability, which is a shame. I think she has. Maybe they could buff her, but yeah, and of course there's other witches to come out as well. There's not. I'm not saying it's impossible for her to be a great tank. Just her abilities, her inbuilt abilities for herself, it makes her very, very vulnerable to fast teams and high damage teams. And then if the enemy with a Mockery Yeah, that's the one part I don't like. It's reducing a random ally's ability by 1. Then special ability cooldown. Is that all abilities across the board, or is it just one random ability on one random ally? It'd be interesting to know. I wish it prioritized a specific class or a specific character, or it just targeted her. I think maybe that could have been a good way to counter her ability to take a lot of damage. If it reduced her own cooldowns, and then she could get that lightning... No, it's not the lightning one. The ability that reduces damage by 50%. Maybe could add something going on there. But yeah, other than that, yeah, putting a lot of damage on herself. Okay, finally, we have Guardian of Chaos, the leadership ability of Diana. We're going to make this quick because I've been rambling on a lot about this character. I just felt there's a lot to talk about. Damage to the shields of allies of the Defense Orb squad is reduced by 15%. If an ally of the Defense Orb squad takes damage from an attack that targets an ally, the ally gets a shield equal to 10% of the maximum health afterwards. Enemies with Mockery take 10% more damage. So yeah, some neat stuff here. She's almost always having the Mockery debuff up on the enemy. So that's an extra 10% damage. Of course, enemies can just remove debuffs. Most of them can. If the ally of a Defense Orb squad takes damage from an attack that targets all allies. So she's big on protecting the team from AoE. But then everyone on the team gets a shield for 10% of their max HP. That's nice damage to the shield. And then she's reducing damage to shields. So she's making everyone a little tanky. The issue we have here is that we've gone the whole way through this character with her abilities affecting both witches and Defense Orb, but then we get to her leadership ability and it's only for Defense Orb. It's not witches either. I guess they could have done this to prevent her from being a contestant to the witch's actual leader when she comes out, having potentially a better leadership ability. So they've made her own leader of her own little group, and then they're going to make an actual leader for the witches. The only issue I have with this is primarily the characters from the Defense Orb squad are mostly witches. So if you get to something like Cradle of Chaos, you can't really make a Defense Orb squad and a witches squad. You're going to have to pick one or the other. So I hope they release more characters into the Defense Orb squad and allow you to build almost a specific team for that, and then build an actual witches team as well. That would be nice to see. Overall, she's a nice hero. There's nothing broken about her. I don't think she's going to be breaking the game in any way. I just think she could have been a little bit more tankier, really taking the hits. Give me those Siegfried vibes from back in the day. Other than that, I think, yeah, she's beautifully designed. Nothing more to really say. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I will answer it to the best of my ability. And wherever you're on the world, till next time, please take care of yourself.